Hey guys, so today is day 7, which means this is the last video in the series of acing the algebra EOC. And today we're going to be going over a few different things, starting with writing linear equations from a table, a graph, and a verbal description. So if we look at the table, and whenever we see a table, the first thing that we need to keep in mind that we can use is, of course, StatEdit. So I'm going to be plugging these into StatEdit, and then we'll write the equation from that. So when I go to my calculator, again, to reset these, we can just press second plus 712. And I'm going to press the stat button and enter to edit. And I'm going to type in all of my x values and then all of my y values. So I have -7, -4, -1, 2, and 5 for my x's. And then again, each time I'm typing in these numbers, I'm pressing enter afterwards. So I have -16, enter, -7, 2, 20, and 20. So once we type these in, we're going to press stat again, go over to calc, and then since this is a line, I'm going to be using number 4. So for number 4, it's a line. So I press 4 and then enter 5 times. And it gives me these two numbers. Since these are pretty decimals, I'll leave them as decimals. And what we're doing is we're replacing the A and the B with the numbers they gave us. So we have y equals 3.3x plus 7.1. And that would be our equation given a table. So the second thing we look at is a graph, and this is going to be similar to the table, but we have to find the points that are on the graph itself. And 2 points have already been identified for us. We have 0, 5, and then 2, -1. And I can go ahead and put these 2 points into a table. It just keeps everything nice and organized. So 0, 5, 2, and -1. And again, we're going to plug these into StatEdit. So press stat again, enter to edit. And to clear these numbers out without deleting the column, we highlight the title, press clear, enter. So again, highlight the title, clear, enter. And I can type in my my new numbers. So we have 0 and 2. Those are my x's, and then my y's are 5 and -1. And again, because this is a little line, press stat, calc, 4, enter 5 times. And so my equation for this particular line is y equals -3x plus 5. And that is my equation. So for the last part, we have a verbal description, which is just a word problem. And let's start off by reading it. So it says a student saves $15 per week towards the purchase of new shoes. Her grandmother gives her $50 on her birthday to help her reach a goal, or to help her reach her goal. We need to write a linear equation to represent the situation. So we got to think of this as we've got a one-time fee, and then we have something that she is saving weekly. So that one-time fee, we have $50 that her grandmother gave. And then right here, it says she's saving 15 per week. That word per, it represents multiplication. So I have 15x because we don't know how many weeks she is going to be saving for these shoes. And the beginning of this equation is y equals, because again, we don't know the total price. So our final equation is y equals 15x plus 50. The next thing that we're going to be talking about for linear equations is the different forms that they come in. And the one that we're most familiar with is the slope-intercept form. And like it says in the title, slope-intercept means that we're given a slope, which is m, and an intercept, which is b, and it is our y-intercept. So looking below, it says identify the slope and y-intercept of the following equation. So again, your slope is always attached to x. Again, always attached to x. So my slope for this equation is 12, and your y-intercept is always at the end, so it is 19. Alright, and finally for that last description, it says find the slope and y-intercept from the line passing through the points 5, negative 11, and negative 9, 17. So the easiest way to find the slope and y-intercept is to plug them into StatEdit. So I'm just going to put them into a table and then type them into my calculator. So going back to StatEdit, so we have 5 and negative 9, and then negative 11 and 17. So again, this is a line, so stat calc number 4, enter 5 times. And our equation is y equals negative 2x minus 1. So my slope is negative 2, y-intercept is negative 1. And that would be our answer. Alright, let's talk about this second kind of equation, and that is point slope form. This is probably the one that you're not used to seeing, especially the way it's written, but it gives us a point and our slope, hence the name. So for this particular equation, it says it wants us to identify the slope from the following equation. So your slope is always going to be near your x. In this case, we have 7x, so our slope is 7. We're not having to do any solving, nothing like that. We just simply have to identify it. And now it wants us to convert the equation above into slope-intercept form. And the easiest way to do this is to simply solve for y, or get y by itself on one side. So the first thing we have to do is distribute, and when we distribute, we multiply. So I have 7x minus 21. And then I'm going to bring down my leftovers. And the last thing that we have to do to solve this problem is add 2 to both sides. When we do this, we get y equals 7x minus 19, because negative 21 plus 2 is negative 19. Alright, and so for the last kind of problem is standard. It's ax plus by equals c, where a, b, and c are all numbers. So yes, this equation looks pretty, but it doesn't tell us anything. Instead, what we need to do, essentially, is we can solve for y, or I can plug in a point. And that's what I'm going to be doing for this problem below. So essentially, I'm just going to pick one of these points given in the table and put them into each of these problems. I'm going to choose 2 and 6. They're the smallest numbers to work with. And I'm going to plug them in for x and y. So for this first problem, I have 3 times 2 minus 2 times 6. So I'm going to plug that into my calculator and see if it equals negative 6. So clear that out. So 3 parentheses 2 minus 2 times 6. And we do get negative 6. So I'm going to go through and double check these just to make sure that none of the other ones give me the same answers. So for the second one, we have 2 times 2 minus 3 times 6. That's negative 14, so it can't be B. Then 2 times 2 plus 3 times 6. That's 22. And then 2 times 2 minus 3 times 6, which is also negative 14. So that means that A is the correct answer. So again, you can just take the point, plug it into the equation, and see if you get the same answer. Alright, so the last thing we're going to be looking at, I believe, is we have rate of change and StatEdit. So again, rate of change is going to be the same thing as our slope. Again, rate of change is the same as slope. So for the first part, we need to determine the rate of change for the given function, and it's a graph. So we are going to write these into a table, plug them into StatEdit, and find our answer. So for this one, we have negative 3 and 3.6, 5 and 2. And again, we only need to know the slope or the rate of change. So going to StatEdit, clearing out my old stuff, and we have negative 3 and 5 for our x's, 3.6 and 2 for the y's. Stat, calc, number 4, enter 5 times. And for this one, we get our slope is negative 0.2. And again, to refresh our memory, I'm going to transform this into a fraction. So we type in our decimal, negative 0.2. Math right here for number 1. Enter. And so negative 0.2 is the same as negative 1/5. And that would be our answer. So second one is still the same. So it's asking what is the rate of change. And I'm going to again choose 2 points. So it looks like I've got one here at 220. 220. And then another one at 4 and then 15. So again, we're just trying to find the slope. Alright, so I have 2 and 4 are my x's, 20 and 15 are my y's. Stat, calc, 4, enter 5 times. So for this one, our slope would be negative 2.5. And essentially for this problem, what it means is that the student's lunch account is going down with the number of lunches purchased. Alright, so for the last one, again, we have a table, so we're just going to plug it into StatEdit. Alright, so we've got -1. So we have clear enter. So -1, 0, 1, and 2. And then my y's, we have 5, 3, 1, and -1. Stat calc 5. Oops, sorry. Stat calc 4. Enter 5 times. So for this one, our slope is -2. Alright, so for the last part, again, we're just dealing with StatEdit. The first problem is going to be a system of equations. So while our x, or number of miles in this case, stays the same, Uber and Lyft, we're looking at the different costs. So let's see. So let's do the first equation, and we're going to be dealing with Uber first. So I'm going to go ahead and write y, or c, equals, in this case. We're going to plug it into StatEdit, and we're going to have to do it twice. So, let's plug in the number of miles. So we have 1, 3, 6, 8, and 9. And then for the Uber cost, we have 525, 975, 16, 50, 21, and 23.5. 23.25. So again, we're pressing stat calc number 4, enter 5 times. So our first equation is y equals, or c equals, 225n, because we're looking at number of miles, plus 3. So let's see what our second one costs us. So we're looking at Lyft next. And I'm just going to go back and change the prices, or the cost. So we have 7, 10.50, 15.75, 19.25, and 21. So right off the bat, Lyft is looking a little cheaper. So stat calc 5. Again, stat calc 4. I don't know why I keep saying 5. Enter 5 times. And our second equation is c equals 175 and plus 525. And that would be our second equation. So that's how we would do a system using StatEdit. And now for the second one, again, we're still using StatEdit, but it tells me I need to write a quadratic equation. So let's go ahead and type these in. So StatEdit, clear out your stuff. And I'm going to be looking at the numbers off screen, but you can just look at your paper to write these down, or type them into your calculator. So I have 0.5, double check these numbers to make sure that they match up. We do. So stat calc, because this is a quadratic function, now we get to use number 5 because it's a quadratic function. Enter 5 times. And so I'm going to be rounding each of these numbers to the nearest hundredth. So I have y equals negative 15.98x squared plus 40.01x plus 4.99. Here would be the final equation for a quadratic table. Alright, and so the last one, this one is kind of just like a bonus. We're going to go over it anyway. But we need to write an exponential function based on the data. We're still going to use StatEdit. So, we have StatEdit. I'm going to clear out all these values. So we have -2. Oops. Okay, when typing them in, you can't use the minus sign. But so -2, -1, 0, 1, 2. We have 5, 15, 18, 21.6, and 5.92. So for this one, we're still going to use StatCalc. So StatCalc, and we are going to scroll down, it's a little bit further down, but to 0 where it says EXP. So because this is an exponential function, we use EXP and press enter 5 times. And so this one, we're going to write it a little bit differently, but I have my A and my B values, and we should get y equals 18 times 1.2 to the x, which is not written. So if we use the exponential function, this is the answer we should get. Y equals 18 times 1.2 to the x. That's all I have for today. If you have any questions, please just ask your teacher. And good luck on your Algebra 1 STAAR. Hope you do the best, and I'll see you hopefully in the next one.